Almost 30 years later, Tarantino's first masterpiece, losing at 1995's Oscars, has aged terribly. Approaching 30 years since Quentin Tarantino's first masterpiece, lost at the 1995 Oscars, it feels like an even worse decision now than ever before. Upon being released in 1994, Pulp Fiction was only Tarantino's second film ever, coming out just 2 years after Reservoir Dogs, his electric directorial debut. Despite being well-received, Pulp Fiction was the first true masterpiece made by Tarantino, and still remains one of the best in his entire filmography. Helping to resurrect John Travolta's career, Pulp Fiction paired the actor with Samuel L. Jackson, and the rest is history. The film is a staple of the postmodern genre, and has continued to grow in reverence 30 years after its release. Famously, Pulp Fiction is told out of chronological order and was a massive hit right away, winning the Palme d'Or at the 1994 Cannes Film Festival and making over $200 million on an $8 million budget. The stylish film shot Tarantino into superstardom, but wasn't able to win the coveted Best Picture Oscar, a decision that has remained baffling nearly 30 years later. Forrest Gump won Best Picture 29 years ago. Forrest Gump came out the same year as Pulp Fiction and was also an instant success, making over $670 million, while taking home a massive amount of awards following its release. It is still director Robert Zemeckis' biggest financial success, coming out just 4 years after he concluded his Back to the Future trilogy. Such was its success that Forrest Gump was nominated in 13 categories at the 1995 Academy Awards, winning 6 of them. It won for Best Visual Effects, Best Film Editing, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actor, Best Director, and Best Picture, undeniably the biggest winner of the 1995 awards season. Tom Hanks' Best Actor win was his second consecutive, taking home the award the prior year for the film Philadelphia, and was his third nomination at the time. It was the first and only Best Director and Best Picture nomination, and a win for Robert Zemeckis, though he was nominated for Best Screenplay in 1986 for Back to the Future. Pulp Fiction was snubbed of its rightful Oscar win in 1995. That same year, Pulp Fiction was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture, Best Film Editing, Best Screenplay, with Uma Thurman nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Samuel L. Jackson for Best Supporting Actor, and John Travolta for Best Actor. Astonishingly, it only took home 1 Oscar that night for Best Original Screenplay, which did give Quentin Tarantino his first Oscar, a feat he later repeated in same category for Django Unchained. Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood have all been nominated for Best Picture. Despite winning the Palme d'Or prior to the Academy Awards, which is one of the most prestigious awards in the industry, Pulp Fiction still lost Best Picture and Best Director, which was a massive snub at the time. It's a shame too, considering that it was definitely the strongest film of that year among the nominees. Despite all that, the awards love it received over its initial run set the stage for Tarantino for the next 3 decades of his career. Forrest Gump has aged incredibly poorly. No, Forrest Gump isn't a terrible movie. It isn't even a bad movie. It is still a well-received film that has endured since it was first released 30 years ago. It just didn't deserve to win the Oscar that year, especially when you compare it to the lasting legacy of 2 of the films it beat. Not only did Forrest Gump beat Pulp Fiction, it also beat The Shawshank Redemption. Of course, all 3 films are some of the most culturally significant moments in American cinema, but Forrest Gump definitely feels like an outlier. Compared to Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption, it doesn't feel as timeless. Both Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption have essentially remained critical darlings for their entire lives, with both of them being in the top 10 of IMDb's best 250 movies. where The Shawshank Redemption currently sits at number 1. Forrest Gump is still highly regarded, of course, but has been continuously reevaluated over the years, poorly by most assessments. Compared to Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption, it simply doesn't feel as timeless nor as good. It will always be a shame that Pulp Fiction didn't win Best Picture at the 1995 Academy Awards, considering it was the best film that year and one of Tarantino's undeniable masterpieces. Still, the loss didn't, and still doesn't, affect the film's legacy anyway, which has continued to endure for 3 decades, and will continue to endure for decades to come. Pulp Fiction is simply one of the best, no matter what it did or didn't win.